After the grain filler set up for about 48 hours, I gave it a light sanding with the grain with 320 grit, and then I sprayed it with lacquer sanding sealer, and that's where things stand right now. Before I proceed to toner lacquer, I want to give this another light sanding because little dust bunnies here and there reflect some bits of stuff settled in the lacquer as it dried, so I want to get all that off. And then the toner lacquer. Now I could leave it as is, which doesn't look too bad, except that I had to put new veneer on the top, and it's slightly lighter than the mahogany veneer on the sides. So I'm hoping to even that up with a toner lacquer. So maybe I'll do 3 light passes on the top and 2 light passes on the side. Unfortunately, it's a rather overcast day, but I want to get going with this cabinet, so up in the attic I'll just put on all the lights I can and trust that that will be good enough for me to judge how the color looks. Oh, and as far as how the grain filler turned out, nice and smooth. All the grain is completely filled in. So after the toner lacquer and then clear coating, I hope to have to do very little, if any, sanding and then a bit of rubbing out. And as far as rubbing out goes, you know, you've seen me use in the past steel wool or pumice stone or rotten stone. Well, there's a product out there I'd heard of a while ago called Bellin, I think, finishing compound, or no, deluxing compound. And I'd wanted to get some and try it out, but the few places I found that sold it didn't really have anything else I needed at the time, so I couldn't really fill up a complete order, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a product I'd never tried before. Well, just so happens I was contacted on YouTube a few days ago by someone with far more experience than I in woodworking, and he suggested this product and wondered if I had ever heard of it, and I said, yeah, I had, but I never tried it. Well, it turns out that he found he had a little extra product, and he's going to send me some, so I think this will be a good project to try it out on. Here's how it turned out. I did just like I proposed. 3 passes on the top and 2 on the sides, and it looks like a pretty even color match to me. So let this sit up for a while longer, and a few things I want to do. One, I want to paint around inside these vent holes, and 2, do something about the edge of the top veneer. We can see it's still rather light colored here. I think I'll take some sort of touch-up marker and just run along that edge there to darken it up. I decided to mask off that edge of veneer there, and then I'll spray it with some extra dark walnut. May seem like a lot of work for a very minor detail, but I think it's worth the effort. Now, of course, now that I've got it masked off, I could just as soon take anything like a stain marker, but I don't think that would be quite opaque enough, or even just like a black permanent marker and go over that. But since I've got the toner lacquer, I'll go ahead and use that. And assuming once I peel this off everything looks okay, I will paint those vent holes I showed earlier, and then I am going to use this stuff, clear coat. Semi-gloss 5055 sheen. I've been using this on a couple projects recently, and I like the way it looks. The gloss, which I think is 75-80 sheen, it's a little too shiny for my taste, so I'll go with this. And even though it says semi-gloss, like I used on this GE set, when you rub that out, it ends up looking pretty shiny, but not quite as shiny as if I use gloss. You use gloss and you buff it out to this extent, it's really, really shiny, which I think is a little overkill, especially on TVs. So this is what I'll use. The cabinet's coming along very nicely. Earlier today I put the final coats on the top. A few hours ago I did this side, and tomorrow I'll do the other side. I've just been spraying one horizontal surface at a time. That allows me to put the coats on heavier and not have to worry about anything running. And I really, really like this Mohawk nitrocellulose based lacquer. In the past I've used Deft, I've used Watco, and that's probably about it. That's really all I can get locally, is the Deft and the Watco, which is why I use them. But for special projects, for nicer projects, I think it's worth splurging the extra money. I have to get this shipped to me, so it's quite a bit more expensive than using Watco, which I can get less than a mile from here quite inexpensively. Nothing wrong with the Watco. It's just that this stuff flows out better and it leaves a better feel to it. I mean, they look the same, basically, but this came out so nice and smooth. Between using the grain filler and this quality lacquer, I mean, I could leave this as it is right now and it would be just fine. But I will try that deluxing compound. I'm curious to see how it works out, but there's really no need to do any sanding on this. As you can see here, that that grain is all perfectly filled in, nice smooth surface. Alright, well, I'll wait for that side to cure up more, and I will move on to this chassis. I want to test all the tubes now. For sure, I tested all these back when I restored this set a couple years ago now, I think. But I don't recall what tube tester I had back then. I may have gotten a Cardmatic by then, but I can't remember. Regardless, though, that is what I'm going to use now to test these tubes. I know I've got cards for all of them, so it should go pretty quick, and I know that's an accurate tester. Here's a look at the cabinet in some better lighting. Let's see here how that dark lacquer I applied to the edge of the veneer turned out. Minor detail, but I think it looks a lot better now. Alright, so I will let this cure up for a bit longer, maybe a week or so, then I will try the deluxing compound. In the meantime, I will tweak up the chassis. And I also want to paint this an off-white instead of this greenish color. I just tried a little test with the Bellin deluxing compound, and it's interesting stuff, and I could definitely see some promise to it. What it is a soft, gooey wax with an abrasive in it, like fine pumice stone. So you can put it on a pad or a cotton cloth, and you rub it with the grain, and not only does it wax it, but the more you rub, the shinier it gets, because it's abrading the surface. So I just did a section about this large. Hope you guys can see the difference. Right about here, so I did this side and didn't do it there. I think a bit more and it'll get the look I'm going for. But before I get too caught up in that, I'm going to deal with some other stuff. Namely, right now, I got off the remains of my burlap grill cloth, and now I want to sand this down with some really coarse sandpaper to get the glue residue off, and I want to go over this, not with as coarse, maybe 220 grit, not so much to take all this green paint off, but to prepare it to accept some fresh paint. So with the surface so smooth, I don't know if the new paint would adhere so well, and I'll be using Navajo white this time. After a few tests, I decided to go with a light gray for around the screen, followed by semi-gloss clear. So that will be it for the cabinet. And now I'm going to focus on the chassis, which hopefully won't require much effort. And then finally, the grill cloth. I will try to reuse the original, but I've got some doubts it'll work out. We'll see. I've also been looking around online on eBay and other suppliers for a grill cloth that looks pretty close. I found one or two potential candidates. So first I'm going to try to salvage the original. If I can't, next I'll hit like a Joann Fabrics, see if they have anything close. If not, I'll fall back to some stuff I found on eBay that looks reasonably close, I think. Alright, I finally got the chassis back up on the workbench. When I checked all of the tubes, I found that one of the 6AL5s was quite weak, and one of the 6AU6s had some high secondary emissions, so I replaced those two. And also the 6BG6 horizontal output tube down inside here was a bit weak, so I replaced that as well. And now I'm going to fire it up for the first time in quite some time. I've got it attached to the Sencor PR57, so when I turn it on, I can see how much current it's drawing, and here we go. So, shut up to about 1 3/4 amps. Now we're down a little below 1.5. Tubes are lighting up. As they do, the current draw is going back up to right around 1.8 amps. Which seems reasonable for this set. Here's some hum out of the speaker. No, nothing on the CRT though. Ooh, that sounds horrible. Don't recall what controls do what. Okay, there we go. Boy, if that's brightness and contrast, it's not as bright as I would have expected. Also, this brightness control just keeps rotating and rotating. It does go down, but when it goes up, it just keeps turning and turning. And we've got some lines over here, and it's not centered. And of course, we don't see anything, but I don't know what channel this is set to. Trying to remember these controls. I think this is focus of all things. Seems like a strange place to put it, but it is affecting the focus in the CRT. And this is the channel clunker. I gotta dig up the knob because I cannot change it without it. Alright, let's see if I can actually pull anything in. It's gotta be channel 6. I do have a signal hooked up to this set. Just there's probably this, but that looks terrible. Okay, this is horizontal hold, I'm sure. Gotta be vertical hold on the outside. Wow, I'm really surprised at how touchy this set is. I'm adjusting the horizontal hold and I'm having a real hard time getting a lock. I'll try a different channel. So it's channel 3, I'll try channel 4. So I'm really rather surprised because when I last used this set, it actually was working fairly well. It seems like the sync circuitry isn't working at all, and I'm only getting a lock when I just happen to stumble across exact phase and frequency, and it just matches for a brief moment, then it goes all crazy again. So I'll start looking there. I'll double check the sync tubes and make sure that they're good. After a bit of fiddling, this is the best I could get, which is alright, but it's got some pin cushion issues, it's off center, the hold is incredibly touchy, and there's some buzzing in the audio, so I mean, it's been a few years since I restored this set. Back then I was a bit newer to this hobby, and back then maybe this is as well as it worked, and I thought that this was great. I don't recall, it's been a while. Or has the set just degraded from not being used for a couple of years? I'm not sure. I swapped out a couple 6SN7s that are involved in the sync circuitry and the 6AL5. Let's see if that made any difference. Well, that CRT is really out of focus when this set powers up, and it takes a while to come online. I wonder how healthy the CRT is. Alright, well, the sync is still crap. I know this set was working better when I last powered it up, that's for sure. So this will be a little more interesting to work on than I realized. Hopefully it won't be too tricky to figure out. Well, that's going to be it for now. Hope you guys enjoyed the latest installment in this GE A10 re-restoration.